Hey guys, it's Jen. Welcome back to my channel and welcome back to my annual Christmas Cook With Me. We are going to be making an epic amount of things, starting with some homemade enchiladas from scratch. My sister came over and helped me make those. I'm also making some chocolate chip cookies. Kira is going to help me make some homemade coleslaw for Christmas Day. I am making a delicious chocolate pie for dessert, some homemade mac and cheese. This is a crock pot recipe that is new to me. I also made some homemade peanut butter cookies, which are a family favorite. And then for Christmas Day, Adam smoked pork on the smoker, and so I made some potato salad to go with that. Very exciting. My sister and I also made some homemade from scratch pozole. It was delicious. We're also making some ROLO pretzel treats, a veggie tray for Christmas Day, and then I'm also sharing what we had for Christmas morning breakfast. So come along with me. This video is going to be awesome. All right, so the first thing we are doing is homemade enchiladas, and yes, we are making the sauce from scratch. All right, so tell me what we got going on here.
Okay, so we soaked our dried guajillo chilies in boiling water for a half hour, and now I'm gonna add a chopped half of an onion and three cloves of garlic that I just crushed.
Okay, you already did it?
What?
You already crushed the garlic?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
And the onion.
Oh, it's in there already?
Yep.
Oh, cool.
And then we have to put in 3 cups of low sodium chicken broth. Oh, only 2 cups for now. They must want us to, where's your measuring cup?
Okay, so I can already see that my sister and I are going to have to get a lot more professional if we're going to have a cooking show here. But anyway, we are using the homemade enchilada recipe from Simply Mama Cooks. So I will link her channel and her cookbook down below. I discovered her earlier this year, and I also introduced my sister to her YouTube channel. And yes, we are obsessed with her authentic Mexican cooking. So to make the enchilada sauce, basically you blend the soaked chilies and then put them through a strainer. And the next step is to soften the corn tortillas. So basically we have corn tortillas here with a little bit of vegetable oil in a skillet. You just want this over medium heat. And you're basically just warming these tortillas in the oil. You do not want to crisp them because then they will be super hard to roll. Just basically get them soft in the oil. So we used a variety of fillings for these enchiladas. We did some cheese, some chicken, and some pork, just with ingredients that I had on hand. But these were really, really good. I have never made enchiladas with authentic soaked chilies before, and I would definitely do it again. In fact, I have plans to make more with ground beef, so definitely stay tuned for that. Of course, on this particular day, we cooked some for lunch, and then we also put some in freezer pans to freeze for later use. But then I also wanted to try vacuum sealing some and putting them into the freezer for later use. I have not used these yet. I've just basically vacuum sealed them and put them in the freezer, but I did get a new Food Saver vacuum sealer at Sam's Club. I would definitely recommend it. I'll link the one that I have down below. I got it on sale. Previously, I had a vacuum sealer that was kind of an off-brand from Amazon, and it wasn't the greatest. Every time I would use it, I'm like, yeah, this is gonna crap out like one of these days real soon. So I went ahead and switched to the Food Saver, and I have no regrets. But essentially what I did was I packed 2 of these in a quart-sized bag. I made sure to kind of spread them apart so that when I thawed them, they would not stick together. So what I did to be able to vacuum seal these was flash freeze them on a tray. So basically we rolled the enchiladas and put them on a tray, and I stuck them in my deep freeze and waited until they were completely frozen solid. And then I was able to put them into a vacuum bag and seal them. So that's kind of the process that we used for that. The thing I have found about these enchiladas is that they are not that saucy. So essentially you would basically put these in the oven with maybe some cheese on top and bake them. It's a lot different than like the saucier sort of like, I would say, American version of enchiladas. But anyway, these are really delicious. And like I said, I will post both the cookbook and the recipe videos down below. So the next recipe that my sister and I made was some red pozole with pork. And if you're not familiar with this, it is a soup that basically has a pork broth with shredded pork in it. It also has hominy, and the broth is flavored with chilies. And you mostly serve it with like shredded cabbage, onion, cilantro, and sometimes people serve it with sour cream. So I have never made this before, and I trust Angelica from Simply Mama Cooks. So this is the recipe that we used. This turned out so freaking delicious. I would make it 100 times over. It is one of Adam's favorite dishes that we get when we go out to an authentic Mexican restaurant, and he actually said that it was better than any pozole he has ever gotten at a restaurant before. So what I'm doing here is cutting up some pork shoulder. I ended up getting pork shoulder on the bone, but you can get boneless pork shoulder if you want to. I basically just tried to cut most of the fat off of it so it wouldn't be so greasy, and just cut it into large chunks. Once you get the pork cut up into chunks and cut most of the fat off, what you'll want to do is put it in a large pot of water. I used a 10-liter pot, and essentially fill the pot up with cold water and rinse the pork several times in salted water. And this will help to sort of lessen the scum that forms on the top of the water as you are boiling it. I'll show you this here in a second. But essentially what I did was fill this large pot that I had. I can link this pot down below. I got it on Amazon. It's a Cuisinart pot. I use it for so many things. It's really good. And I just rinsed the pork over and over for maybe, I don't know, about 5 times until the water ran clear. Okay, so the next step is to add the pork to the pot with some cold water, some bay leaves, and some salt. And basically you're just going to boil this for about an hour on medium heat until the pork is tender. And then while you're doing this, you want to use a spoon to kind of skim some of the scum that forms on the top of the pot. That's basically just like the grease from the pork, you know, coming to the top. And you definitely don't want that in your soup. So it's really easy to just use a shallow spoon and skim that off into a bowl continuously while the pork is boiling. I'm also going to prepare my chilies. So here I have some dried ancho chilies. You could use ancho and guajillo, whatever you can find. I actually waited too long to get chilies this holiday season, and a lot of them were sold out, so we had to make do with what we had, but it worked out just fine. So what you want to do is use kitchen shears to cut the top off the dried chilies, and then kind of cut down the sides so that you can access the seeds. And you want to take most of the seeds out. It's fine if some still remain, but just take most of them out. And then I'm just washing them in my salad spinner. You can use a big bowl of cold water if you want to, but there will be some dirt and debris on these chilies, and you definitely want to wash that off. I know the last time my sister and I made homemade tamales, we did not necessarily do it right because I don't think we washed the chilies. And I also think that we used the boiling water that we used to soak the chilies in the recipe. And technically you should probably not do that because most of the time that soaking water is very bitter and it will end up making your chili sauce very bitter, which is what we found out. So once your chilies are, sort of de-seeded and rinsed off, just put them in a saucepan with some cold water and then just put that on the stove. Go ahead and bring it to a boil. You can turn the heat off, and then after that you just want to let these soak for about 30 minutes until they are soft. Once the chilies are soft, you can take them out of the water with tongs and just put them straight into a blender cup. I do not have an alternative for a blender, so you definitely need a blender to make this recipe, but then you're also going to add some water, some chicken bouillon, and then some onion, garlic, and some Mexican oregano. Once that is all added to the blender, you can just go ahead and process that until it is all pureed. We are going to end up straining this, which is kind of a long process, but it is needed to make sure that the broth in the pozole stays clear. So essentially I put a fine mesh strainer over my big stock pot there, and right now I have already removed the pork It's done cooking. I've cooked it for about an hour. So I just removed it to a baking dish and I'm letting it rest while I add the chili sauce. So this takes quite a long time. I would say it probably took me around 5 minutes to strain all of this chili paste into the pot, but it is definitely worth it. So just keep at it until you're finished. Just use a spoon to kind of push it through the strainer. You can see here when this was about done, this is what it looks like. You have sort of the solids from the chili paste left in the strainer, and then all of the juice and the flavor from the chilies goes down into the pot. So at this point, like I said, we have removed the pork. My sister is going to basically shred that into bite-sized pieces. Just remember, this is going to be a soup, so you're going to want to eat it with a spoon. And then once the chili sauce is back in, we're going to go ahead and cover that and simmer it for another 20 minutes. While that is simmering, I'm going to get the hominy ready. So this is just canned hominy. 4 15-ounce cans is what you'll need. I had a hard time finding this in the stores because I guess around Christmas time it's popular, and I waited too long to buy it. If you guys watched my grocery haul, you probably would have already seen that. But I did find some yellow hominy, which in the end, we didn't really notice a difference between the white and the yellow hominy, but you just want to put this into a strainer and rinse it really, really well before you add it to the soup. So once I rinsed and drained my 4 cans of hominy, I'm going to go ahead and add that back to the broth. So again, this is just the pork broth with the chili paste in there. I'll go ahead and give that a stir, and then I will simmer this again for about 20 minutes. Yes, this is a very involved recipe. It is not quick and easy. It definitely takes, I would say, probably half a day to make. But it's worth it. You can freeze it, you can give it away. It's delicious. So once we had our pork shredded and the hominy had been boiling for a little bit, we went ahead and put that back into the soup. I used probably, I would say, a 5 to 6 pound pork roast, and that was just about perfect for this particular recipe. So just put that back in and continue cooking it for about 20 minutes. Now, while that was cooking, I went ahead and prepared the toppings. So traditionally, you would have some shredded cabbage, some raw onions, some cilantro, and some sour cream if you wanted it, and then also a little bit of lime juice. You will also want to taste your soup at this point and see if it needs any extra spice. We did end up adding some extra chipotle chili paste to ours because we thought it needed more spice, but this is what it looks like in the bowl. OMG, this soup is so good. I have really never enjoyed it much before this, but making it at home, the flavors were so delicious and so concentrated, and we got a ton of soup. So I portioned this out into 1 quart containers. I bought these on Amazon. I can link them down below, and they worked perfectly to portion this soup out. And then, like you can see, we also portioned our toppings out, but this was a delicious recipe. I would definitely recommend it. Okay, so the next thing that we made on this day were some ROLO pretzels. If you've never made these before, they're kind of a traditional Christmas treat, I would say. I will link the recipe down below, although it's very, very easy. Essentially, you have these pretzel rings. You place them on a baking sheet. You put either ROLOs or Hershey Kisses in the middle of them. And then once you kind of have everything set up, you put them in a 250-degree oven for just about 2 to 3 minutes until the chocolate starts to melt. And then you can either press an M&M or a pecan on top of them. And here my niece is going to tell us how she made them. Adeline, do you like enchiladas?
Yeah.
What kind's your favorite?
I don't know.
Cheese?
Beef.
Cheese, chicken, beef.
You like beef the best?
Yeah.
You want to show us what you made? Show us. Oh, tell us how you did it.
I laid down some pretzels and I put like some
ROLOs
ROLOs in there, and then I put M&Ms after 3 minutes because it had to cook.
Yeah. So I think these are actually done. Because see, they come off the...
Yeah, that's what I did.
But are these done yet? Oh, actually might be. There you go. You want to take some to your dad's house?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so thank you, Adeline, for that awesome explanation of the ROLO pretzels. But seriously, they are one of my favorite Christmas desserts. If you like sweet and salty, I highly recommend them. So now we're going to make some chocolate chip cookies. This was later in the evening. So I'm using a recipe that I can link down below. This recipe actually uses cream cheese and butter, and they're called, I think, secret ingredient chocolate chip cookies or something like that. I personally think these are good, but they also call for chilling the dough in the refrigerator for like 2 hours before you bake them. And I think that's fine in some instances, but when you're in a hurry, it's not like necessarily desirable to have to chill the dough. So I think that other recipes are just as good, but this was the particular one that I decided to try this evening. So I creamed together my butter and my cream cheese in the mixer, and then I added my sugars and vanilla and creamed those together. And next I'm going to add 2 eggs. So next are the dry ingredients, just the traditional flour, baking powder, and salt. It might be baking soda. I don't know. Don't take my word for that until you check the recipe down below. But next I'm going to add in a package of Ghirardelli chocolate chips. I wanted to use M&Ms, but I could not find any red and green M&Ms. So alas, I used chocolate chips. So after this chilled in the refrigerator, I put it into about 2 tablespoon balls on a cookie sheet and baked these for 9 minutes. And they turned out perfect. Here is what they looked like. When you take chocolate chip cookies out of the oven at first, they will look a little bit underbaked on the top, but just let them rest on the cookie sheet for about 2 minutes until you transfer them, and they will be perfect. Do not try to move them before, but the bottoms should be golden brown like this. Okay, so the next recipe that we are making, Kira is actually helping me make, and this is a recipe for a chocolate pie. It is actually Bishop's chocolate pie, so you guys will have to let me know if you're from the Midwest. Bishop's was basically a buffet / cafeteria restaurant. I think it was maybe started in the 60s or 70s and ran through like the 90s, early 2000s, but I can remember going there when I was a kid, like after church, if we wanted to go to like a special dinner, we went to Bishop's, and it was like the thing. Like if we went there, it was like a nice dinner, like it was the thing. And so they had this, like what they called chocolate ambrosia pie. And apparently this is the copycat recipe for that. It is not technically the exact recipe, since they use like vanilla ice cream concentrate, which you can't get in the regular store. But if you want a copycat recipe, I will post it down below. It is really delicious. And if you're looking for like a chocolate silk pie type thing, this is your recipe. See Kira making faces in the camera there. Yes. This is what happens when we film videos with our kids. Hello. Love you. So this recipe calls for 2 packets of instant pudding, 1 chocolate and 1 vanilla, and you beat that in a bowl with some milk. And then sort of the secret ingredient is 2 cups of softened ice cream. So I just basically got like a Haagen-Dazs vanilla ice cream from the store and softened that in the microwave and put it into the bowl. And then Kira helped to mix it up. Yes, this was very sketchy with the hand mixer, but I told her to, keep it on low speed, keep it down in the bowl in the liquid mixture, and it worked out just fine. So basically you want to beat this together until it all comes together in like a homogeneous mixture. I did have to help her a little bit with this. And then this particular pie recipe uses a graham cracker crust, which is awesome because you can just buy it in the store. I would not recommend making your own for this recipe because there is literally no difference in the taste. It turns out just fine. So I tried to kind of scrape down the sides here and help her give it a mix, but I would definitely try this recipe if you're looking for a chocolate pie. You guys will have to let me know if you are familiar with Bishop's. But one of the things like I was talking to my therapist about this week is she was like, if you've had like a tumultuous relationship with your parents, take the good qualities from them and then like inherit those and then just throw away the rest, right? Like, I think that's good advice for all of us, right? Because like parents are people too, and you know, they have good and bad qualities. Even ourselves who are parents, we have good and bad qualities. And so like, take what's good and, you know, inherit those qualities and then throw away the rest. And so like one thing my mom was really good at was cooking. She was always a really good cook, and so was my grandma. And so that's one thing I really enjoy doing, is making her recipes that she passed down to me. And if you guys haven't been following my channel, you probably don't know that she passed away earlier this month. If you want to know more about that, I will link the video down below for the Vlogmas video that I talked about that. Unfortunately, she was anti-COVID vaccine and ended up getting COVID and was in the ICU for several weeks and ended up passing away. So it's a very sad, unfortunate situation, but we are trying to support our family the best that we can. And one of the ways that I like to remember her, especially like the happy times that we had, is making her recipes. And so this is one of the recipes that she had passed down to me. I have lots of her recipes like in her handwriting, in my recipe binder and recipe cards. So anyway, I did make this chocolate pie for Christmas Day with Adam's parents, and everyone enjoyed it. It's very rich and delicious, but it's definitely a worthy holiday dessert. So once the chocolate filling is in the crust, you just want to refrigerate this, preferably overnight for you know, at least 2 hours, I would say. And then you want to spread Cool Whip on the top. So basically 1 tub of Cool Whip, just thaw that out in the fridge and then spread it over the top of the chocolate. You could definitely make homemade whipped cream if you wanted to, but I don't think it's necessary for this dessert. It's just as delicious with Cool Whip. And then after that, you want to basically either put some mini chocolate chips or some shaved chocolate on the top. If you want to be super authentic for bishops, you would do like the big curls of shaved chocolate. I didn't have the proper chocolate to do that with, so I just put some chocolate shavings. But either way, this is a really good recipe for chocolate pie if you are needing to make one for a gathering. Okay, so the next dessert I'm going to make is some peanut butter cookies. Connor requested this. I actually asked my kids what they would like for sort of like sides and dessert for Christmas Day, and Connor specifically requested peanut butter cookies. So this is the recipe I typically use. It's actually a Crisco recipe, which I will link down below. It actually uses butter flavored Crisco, which I could not find this year because, hello, I waited too long to do my grocery shopping, which is my fault. So what I ended up doing was using regular Crisco, and then I used maybe about a teaspoon of butter flavored extract, and it worked out just fine. But this recipe is very traditional. I mean, basically it's like, you know, creamy peanut butter, Crisco, you know, milk, flour, baking powder, salt, whatever. Like I said, I'll link it down below. But after the dough is prepared, you just want to scoop this out onto a baking tray. I'm using a cookie scoop, which is about 2 tablespoons. Alternatively, you could roll this into little balls and place them on your baking sheet. But once you're done doing this, what you're going to do is roll these balls in granulated sugar and then use a fork to kind of crisscross a pattern in the top and flatten them. And this is honestly one of like the best memories I have of making cookies when I was a kid. And I don't even remember like who I made these with, if it was like my mom or my dad or my grandma, but either way, I remember doing this when I was a kid and having a lot of fun with it. And I asked my kids if they wanted to help me with this on this night, and they were like, no. And I was like, okay, whatever, like at least I offered. But I am someone that always like not necessarily struggles with letting my kids help, but I have to like take a step back and say like, okay, this is going to take longer, but it's teaching them life skills that are going to be super valuable. Like, let me know if you guys feel like that. I'm sure you do. I'm sure everyone feels like that. But anyway, now I am flattening these cookies. This recipe makes about 3 dozen cookies, I think. If I had to choose between these and the peanut butter kiss ones, I don't know. I think it's a tie because I think these are really good too. They are best eaten within like 2 days of making them. So if you have extra, definitely freeze the dough and don't bake them. So after they're done, you can let them cool on the baking sheet for maybe about 2 minutes, and then just gently scoop them onto a baking rack. These don't take long to bake at all, and I find the secret with drop cookies, either with like chocolate chip cookies or like these, is to, I mean, the intuition is like you're under baking them, right? Because when you take them out of the oven, they still look a little doughy on top, but that is the secret to getting a nice soft cookie. If you bake them until they are, dry all over, you're going to end up with a very like hard, burnt on the bottom, crispy cookie. So that is something I learned like early on in my cooking/baking career, was to take cookies out of the oven when they still look a little bit raw on top, and you'll still have tender cookies. But I'm going to take these out of the oven and let them cool before I put them into a Tupperware for storage. So unfortunately, I don't have a lot of clips for this particular recipe, but I've made it for you guys before, and I'll link their recipe that I use down below. But Adam, like I said, made some pulled chicken for Christmas Day, and so Kira helped me make some coleslaw, which the recipe that I use is the KFC copycat recipe, which I highly recommend. And what I like to do is chop the onion and the carrot and the cabbage in the food processor, and it chops it up fine, and that is typically sort of the shape and size of cabbage that they use at KFC to get that authentic taste. All right, so that was the last recipe that we made on Christmas Eve. Yes, it was a super long day of cooking, but I enjoyed it. Adam helped me fill the stockings, and I shared with you guys in an earlier vlog about how I got all the presents wrapped. So here is what our tree looked like. The kids were super excited on Christmas morning, so now I'm going to share with you what we had for breakfast. So in years past on Christmas Day, we've kind of had like an involved breakfast. Like Adam and I have done steak and eggs and mimosas and eggs Benedict and hash browns and like all of that. But honestly, if you are going to plan on going somewhere Christmas Day in the afternoon, like we were planning on going to Adam's parents' house, it's harder to do that just because I feel like you're kind of caught up in opening presents and you want to enjoy that, and then you're trying to cook dinner, or not dinner, breakfast. So I tried to just keep it simple on this morning, which worked just fine. I baked some bacon in the oven. You guys can see here I'm just arranging it on a baking rack on a sheet, and I tried to kind of like crinkle it up a little bit so that it would not shrink on the sheet. But I put that into the oven at 400 degrees for about 20 to 25 minutes. And then I also made some cinnamon rolls. So this was just a package of cinnamon rolls that I picked up from the grocery store. Super easy, nothing fancy, but the kids love them. I baked those in a pie plate and then spread the icing over the top so it can melt. And then I also decided to make some scrambled eggs. And so this is what we had for Christmas breakfast. Just some scrambled eggs, some bacon, and some cinnamon rolls. It was perfect and uninvolved, and maybe next year, if we don't go anywhere on Christmas Day, we'll make a more involved breakfast/brunch. I also wanted to mention that my kids specifically asked that I not film Christmas morning for my YouTube channel, which I haven't really done a whole lot in the past. As you guys know, I don't really share my kids a whole lot on my channel anymore. But they specifically asked me, like, don't put Christmas on YouTube. And I was like, yeah, that's fine. I'll just like share the food. So I did not honestly even take any pictures or any videos on Christmas morning. So that is just going to be a private family moment for us. Okay, so after we got done opening presents and eating breakfast, I needed to prep some food to take over to Adam's parents. One of the things I needed to bring was a veggie tray, so I'm kind of just sharing with you the dip that I made. I did not really follow a recipe. Essentially, I added 1 cup of sour cream, about 1 cup of mayo, and mixed that together in a bowl, and then I basically just added a bunch of seasonings. So I used some dry ranch seasoning. I get this from either Costco or Sam's. It's really good to make either dip or ranch dressing with, but I do like to jazz it up a little bit. I don't just use like the plain recipe on the bottle. I like to add some additional seasonings. So I added 3 tablespoons of the ranch dip. I added some fresh cracked black pepper, and then I'm also going to add some ingredients from my spice cabinet, so some parsley flakes and some dill. I like to add that just to kind of, like I said, jazz it up a little bit. And then I also like to add some freshly crushed garlic. I think that gives it a really good flavor as well. You could also add Worcestershire sauce. That makes a really good addition as well. So after the dip is combined, I'm going to go ahead and put it into a dish. I am using my Rubbermaid veggie tray, which I've shared in multiple videos before. I can link it down below. It's super inexpensive. I've seen it in grocery stores before, but it's also on Amazon for around $12. But either way, it's a great option to transport vegetables and dip, especially if you are asked to bring a veggie tray to your next gathering. So once I had the dip prepped, I'm going to go ahead and prep my vegetables. I washed some tomatoes. I also had some baby carrots in the refrigerator. Those are obviously pre-washed, so I put those in the container. I've talked about this container before, like I said, but it's a great way to keep raw veggies in your fridge if that's something that you are interested in doing for your family. I also cut up some peppers. This is just an orange pepper that I had in my crisper drawer, but I went ahead and sliced this up into strips and put that into the veggie tray as well. So definitely prep this veggie tray regardless of whether you're going to a holiday or not, because we have been eating off this for the past several days and I would highly recommend it. So you can see I have some broccoli, some peppers, olives, tomatoes, some cucumbers, and some carrots with my ranch dip in the middle. Okay, so the last thing that I needed to make for Christmas Day was this crock-pot mac and cheese. I can link the recipe down below. OMG, this made so much freaking macaroni and cheese. This is the first time I have made this particular recipe, so I will definitely cut it in half the next time. But if you guys are familiar with the Velveeta mac and cheese recipe on the Velveeta box, essentially you cook it on the stovetop. It just calls for cooked macaroni, Velveeta cheese, milk, salt and pepper. I can't remember what else. Maybe a little bit of butter. I don't know. I can't remember. But anyway, Kira really likes that recipe. And so I was like, how can I make this for a crowd? Oh, I'll look for a crock-pot recipe. And so I found this one. Well, I should have known I should have cut it in half, but I honestly did not think it would make this much. We were feeding 8 people, and so I was like, I'll just make the whole recipe. It's a pound of macaroni. OMG, wrong. I should have definitely cut it in half. So just know that for the smaller crock pot that I used for this recipe, it was definitely overstuffed, but it was really good. So next time I'll just cut it in half. So I boiled my macaroni and I'm also shredding some cheese. I'm using some sharp cheddar for this. Once my macaroni was cooked, I went ahead and put that in the slow cooker with 2 tablespoons of butter and 2 tablespoons of olive oil. Don't quote me on the measurements. Like I said, I will list the recipe down below, and I'm just giving that a stir before I add the rest of the ingredients. So I added my cubed Velveeta, my shredded cheddar cheese, and then it also called for some regular milk and some evaporated milk. I ended up having to leave one of the cans of evaporated milk out because it was just so full. But this was really good. I would definitely recommend this recipe. Like I said, I guess that for a side, this would probably feed literally 24 people. So if you want to make this recipe, I would recommend it, but definitely cut it in half for a more reasonable amount. So thank you guys so much for watching today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed seeing what I was cooking for Christmas this year. Thanks for watching, and I will see you tomorrow for another video. Bye.